Okay, so my mesh is done completing, or I guess running. You can see how many cells it made in this little thing here. So it made 3.45 million cells, which isn't too large of a mesh. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that my mesh looks right by right-clicking on scenes, new scene, and mesh. And this is a view of what my mesh looks like, basically. So if I go inside my mesh by zooming in, I'll be able to see my car. And I want to take a good look at it and make sure that it's pretty much accurate to what the CAD was. And this is pretty accurate to what the CAD was. So looks pretty good to me. And so the next thing that you want to do, you can also go transparent if you want to kind of get a look at what your car is looking like and everything. The next thing that you want to do is to make sure that the wake of the car is being meshed properly. So like this you're looking at, it looks like it's surface mesh. It looks like the squares are only on the surface, but in reality this entire volume, this entire wind tunnel is full of little volumetric cells. And so the only way to see that is if you make a section through the middle of the car. So I can do that by going to Derived Parts, right-click, New Part, Section, Plane. And my origin is going to be 0, 0, 0. And my normal, it depends obviously on the setup of your car, but for me it's normal to be X. And you can see it runs directly down the center of the car. And I want to click New Displayer and create that. And close. And then if I go to right click on Scenes, New, Mesh, or probably can just use this, whatever. So if I go here, go to Displayers, go to Mesh, go to Parts, I want to turn off my regions, and I want to go to my Derived Parts and turn on the plane section. Okay. Let that update. So this is basically it's a cut through the center of your mesh, and you can see that the reason that we did that refinement is so the car is in detail and what's going on behind the car is in detail. You obviously can't see these volumetric cells in like a 3D view because it wouldn't really be possible to see those. But this looks pretty good. The cell quality is good. These are called the prism layers. They capture what the boundary layer is doing, and that looks pretty good. And the wake of the car is being reflected pretty properly, or I guess resolved pretty properly. So if that looks good to you, then the next step is to just define what you want to find out through this simulation. So I'm going to right click on reports, make a new report, and do force. And so my drag force is going to be in the Z direction because that's the way that the car is moving. So I'm going to rename this to drag force and change that direction to the Z. And then I also want to find out how much lift or downforce the car is producing. So new report, force, rename. Well, let's call this lift force. And the lift force for me is in the Y direction. So I'm going to change this to the Y direction. And now there is a way you can find this coefficient of drag and coefficient of lift, but all the cars I've been running at are at 15 meters per second, and they all fit the chassis equally fine. So the coefficient of drag really isn't necessary to compare different models. We can just look at the overall drag force. So after all of this is set up, you're going to go ahead and click this button, and that's going to start running your simulation. And what you want to do is right click on that and create monitor and plot from report of your drag force. And it might take a second because I accidentally started the simulation. You really should do this before the simulation starts. Right click there and click monitor and plot from report. And then it's going to be a little laggy because now it's trying to do two things at once. But if I go to my monitors, plots, I don't know why it's not making it. Create monitor and plot from report. Hello. I'm gonna stop the iteration so that, there we go. See, I guess it's not able to make monitored plots until before, yeah. So once this is made, this is basically a plot of the drag force versus how many iterations are completed. And the way you know to stop your iterations is when this stabilizes. And it's going to show you those values down here as well. The values for the drag force, and if you want to make a plot for the lift force, you can as well. So go ahead and run that, and keep running that until you get to a point. It might take a couple hours even, but you should get to a point where it's figured out that the drag force is like, it's gonna be like 25.22. like, oh shoot, I actually forgot to do something. Sorry. So once you go to drag force, you need to select the part that's actually generating the drag. So for us, if you go to part, go to subtract, go to regions, and under boundaries, this is what you're trying to find the drag of. So it might take a while to update that. Okay, now it's updated. Now for the next iteration, this drag force value here, and I can look at my plot too, is going to have a number value. So waiting for the iteration to finish. Okay, here we go. So the first couple of iterations, the first like 20, 30 might be crazy numbers. So right now it's calculating that there's 77,547 newtons of drag. But that's going down. So eventually, after like hundreds of iterations, it's gonna basically just go from like maybe like 25.2 newtons to like 25.1 back to 25.2. And when it's kind of figured out that one value that it wants to hover around, that's when you know your simulation is good to go and you can stop it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.